Let me tell you something before we get into anything else. I was in Dubai with my family until yesterday morning. We were staying at a hotel on Palm Island, and just across the road from us, the Fairmount Hotel had an explosion. Fire, smoke, complete panic. But we had no idea any of this was happening when we left for the airport in the early hours of the morning. We had an early flight. Everything at the airport looked completely normal. People were checking in, grabbing coffee, scrolling their phones. Nobody had any idea what was about to happen. We boarded, we took off, and then, roughly 2 to 3 hours into the flight, the cabin crew came and made an announcement that stopped the entire plane cold. The United States and Israel had attacked Iran. My first thought, honestly, was not panic. It was calculation. I was sitting there thinking, are we flying through the same airspace where missiles are being launched right now? What is our flight path? Are we safe? But when we landed and finally got signal on our phones, that's when the reality of what was happening actually hit me. I opened my phone and saw footage of Dubai Airport completely covered in thick black smoke. The entire terminal area had been evacuated. Every single flight canceled. Drones were being intercepted in the skies above Burj Khalifa. Near Burj Al Arab, burning debris was falling from the sky and crashing into the ground below. And then I remembered some of my family members had a flight just a few hours after mine. They never got on that plane. Their flight was canceled. And right now, as I am recording this, they are still sitting inside Dubai Airport with no information, no timeline, and no idea when or if things will return to normal. So when I tell you this situation is personal for me, I mean it completely. Now let me break down exactly what has happened, why it happened, and most importantly, what this means for us here in Pakistan and for the entire region. America and Israel have launched what they are calling a full-scale military operation against Iran. The operation has been given an official name, Operation Epic Fury. And U.S. officials have been very clear about one thing. This is not a one-night strike. This is not a warning shot. This is a sustained military campaign that they say will last for multiple days. The stated goal is to permanently destroy Iran's missile manufacturing infrastructure, to wipe it out completely. American officials used the word obliterate. Bombs are falling on Tehran. Bombs are falling on Isfahan. Bombs are falling on Qom and Kermanshah. Multiple cities across Iran are being hit simultaneously. But the single most shocking development in all of this, and I want you to take a moment to absorb this, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, the man who has led the Islamic Republic for over 30 decades, has been killed. This has been confirmed by Iranian state TV itself. He was in his office when the strike happened. His daughter was killed. His son-in-law was killed. His granddaughter was killed. And at the same time, in a separate strike, most of the top military commanders of the Iranian armed forces were killed together while they were sitting in a single defense council meeting. Think about what that means. In a matter of hours, America and Israel did not just bomb buildings, they decapitated the entire leadership structure of the Iranian state. Donald Trump addressed the world and said very plainly, the people that make all the decisions, most of them are gone. The reaction on the streets of Tehran was something the world had never quite seen before. On one side of the same street, people were distributing sweets and celebrating. On the other, people were weeping. Iran is a country deeply divided between those who despise their government and those who, regardless of politics, feel that their nation is under foreign attack. Both emotions are real. Both reactions make sense. But now let me tell you something that mainstream coverage is not emphasizing enough. Iran did not only respond against Israel. Iran launched missiles at the United Arab Emirates, at Qatar, at Bahrain, at Kuwait,
at multiple Gulf countries simultaneously. There were explosions in Dubai. In Abu Dhabi, a man was killed, not by a missile directly, but by falling debris from an intercepted missile. In Doha, the massive U.S. airbase known as Al Udeid was set on fire. In Bahrain, the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet headquarters, one of the most important American naval installations in the entire world, was struck directly. The IRGC, Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards, came forward and claimed they had struck 27 American military bases across the region in a single operation. They named this response Operation True Promise 4. And here is the part that should genuinely disturb every single person watching this. Iran did not limit its strikes to military targets. Civilian areas in Dubai, Kuwait, and Bahrain were hit. Hotels were damaged. International airports came under threat. Now, I want every Pakistani watching this to really think about what I just said. Millions of Pakistanis live and work across the Gulf. In the UAE alone, there are hundreds of thousands of Pakistani workers, businessmen, students, and families. In Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, wherever you look across the Gulf, there are Pakistanis. These are not just statistics. These are our brothers, our cousins, our friends, our fathers who went abroad to earn a living and send money home. Wherever those missiles are falling right now, our people are there. The Pakistani embassy has not yet issued a full emergency advisory at the time of recording, but the situation is developing rapidly. If you have family members in any Gulf country right now, please contact them immediately. Please make sure they know to stay indoors, away from windows, and to follow the instructions of local authorities. Now let's talk about this war economically, because the financial consequences of this conflict could hit Pakistan harder than almost any other country on Earth. Pakistan already imports a massive portion of its energy needs. Our economy is fragile. Our foreign exchange reserves are limited. And the Gulf region is not just where our workers go, it is where our remittances come from. Overseas Pakistanis in the Gulf send billions of dollars back home every year. That money pays for imports, stabilizes the rupee, and keeps millions of Pakistani families above water. If the Gulf descends into prolonged conflict, those remittance flows will be disrupted. Workers will lose jobs, flights will be canceled, people will be stranded. But the oil situation is even more alarming. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. At its narrowest point, it is only about 32 kilometers wide, and yet nearly 20% of all the oil traded in the entire world passes through this single choke point every single day. Pakistan imports a significant portion of its oil from Gulf countries, and virtually all of it travels through or near this strait. Reports are now coming in that Iranian forces have officially announced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. If that closure holds, global oil prices will not just rise, they will explode. We're talking about a price shock that would make every previous oil crisis in Pakistan's history look minor. Petrol prices, diesel prices, electricity prices, the cost of running a generator, the cost of transporting food from farms to cities, everything will go up. Inflation, which Pakistan has already been struggling with, will get dramatically worse. The rupee will come under enormous pressure. Our import bill will balloon, while our foreign exchange reserves shrink. Economists have a specific term for this scenario. They call it a catastrophic supply shock. And Pakistan, given where our economy currently stands, is uniquely vulnerable to exactly this kind of shock. Now, let me take you back a little further, because none of this came out of nowhere.
The seeds of this crisis were planted in December 2025, when Iran's economy finally collapsed under the weight of years of American sanctions. The Iranian rial lost 40% of its value in a matter of weeks. Food prices across Iran jumped by 72%. Ordinary Iranians, people who had nothing to do with nuclear programs or geopolitics, suddenly could not afford basic groceries. What followed were the largest protests in the history of the Islamic Republic.
Millions of Iranians poured into the streets, and the government's response was brutal. Security forces opened fire on their own people. Estimates suggest more than 30 protesters were killed in the crackdown. Donald Trump watched all of this and tweeted publicly to the Iranian people, "Help is on the way." At the time, many dismissed that as typical Trump rhetoric. Nobody is dismissing it now. What makes the timing of this attack even more significant is what was happening just days before it. Oman, which has historically served as a quiet diplomatic back-channel between Iran and the West, had been hosting negotiations. Just one day before the bombs started falling, Oman's foreign minister stood in front of cameras and said that a peace deal between America and Iran was, in his words, within our reach. 24 hours later, the airstrikes began. According to reporting by the Washington Post, this military operation had been planned for months. It did not happen spontaneously. The decision was made, the targets were selected, the assets were positioned, and then the signal was given. The same reporting suggests that intense lobbying by both Israel and Saudi Arabia played a significant role in pushing the Trump administration toward military action. And then there is the question of timing that has enormous implications for our region specifically. Just 2 days before these strikes, Pakistan's neighbor, India, had a very high-profile moment with Israel. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Tel Aviv on the 25th and 26th of February. He had dinner with Benjamin Netanyahu. He addressed the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. He spoke warmly of the relationship between India and Israel. Israeli defense officials subsequently told Reuters that this military operation had been planned at least a week in advance, meaning it was already decided while Modi was sitting in Jerusalem. This has created a significant diplomatic problem for India. For decades, India maintained what it called a neutral position on the Israel-Palestine conflict and kept friendly relations with Iran simultaneously. Iran and India have deep historical, cultural, and economic ties. The Chabahar port project, the trade routes, the energy agreements. India had invested enormously in its relationship with Tehran. But images of Modi laughing and dining with Netanyahu, broadcast around the world on the same week that Israeli bombs began killing Iranian civilians, have severely damaged India's carefully cultivated image of neutrality. Opposition parties in India have already begun asking uncomfortable questions. For Pakistan, there is a separate but related concern. Pakistan shares a long border with Iran. We have our own complex relationship with Tehran, sometimes tense, sometimes cooperative, always consequential. Any major destabilization of Iran directly affects Pakistan's western border, our security situation in Baluchistan, the movement of people and goods, and the broader regional balance of power. A collapsed or chaotic Iran is not a problem that stays inside Iran's borders. It spills over. Now, let me address something that I think needs to be said directly without any diplomatic softening. There is a script that is being used to justify this war, and it is a script we have heard before. The dictator is evil. The people are suffering. We are going to liberate them. We are going to bring freedom and democracy. The hour of your freedom is at hand. We heard this exact script in 2003 about Iraq. Saddam Hussein was genuinely one of the most brutal dictators of the 20th century. Nobody disputes that. He used chemical weapons on his own Kurdish population. He ran a totalitarian state built on fear and mass graves. And when America went in and removed him, many people, including many Iraqis, initially felt hope. What followed was 20 years of war, hundreds of thousands of civilians killed, an entire country's infrastructure destroyed, sectarian violence on a scale that shattered Iraqi society, and in the chaos and power vacuum that followed, a new terrorist organization emerged, one far more brutal and ideologically extreme than anything Saddam Hussein had created. The world came to know it as ISIS or Daesh. The same pattern played out in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi was a dictator and a tyrant. When NATO intervened and he was removed and killed, Libya did not become a democracy. Libya became a failed state. It became a battleground for foreign militias, a hub for human trafficking, a country with two competing governments and no functioning institutions. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Libya. Iran has a population of 90 million people. It has a highly educated middle class, a complex political structure, significant regional influence, and deep connections to armed groups across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and beyond. The idea that you can bomb the Iranian government out of existence and have a smooth democratic transition emerge from the rubble is not based on any historical evidence whatsoever. The greatest fear among serious analysts right now is not that Iran retaliates militarily, though that is already happening. The greatest fear is that Iran becomes ungovernable, that the state collapses, that armed factions begin fighting each other for control, that the country fractures along ethnic and religious lines, and that the chaos spreads outward into Iraq, into Afghanistan, toward Pakistan's own borders. That is not a distant hypothetical. That is the pattern we have seen play out repeatedly. Trump tweeted directly to the Iranian people during all of this. He wrote, "When we are finished, take over your government." That sentence captures perfectly both the arrogance and the ignorance of this approach, as if 70 years of complex Iranian political history, religious authority, tribal loyalties, and regional alliances can simply be resolved by a tweet and a bombing campaign. And while all of this geopolitical chess is being played, in the city of Minab in southern Iran, a girls' primary school was bombed in the middle of the school day. At least 100 children were killed. The school was full. It was a normal Tuesday. Young girls had their books open, and then the bombs came. Israel's official social media account posted shortly afterward. The post read, "Israel has the right to defend itself." The first strike in this entire sequence was launched by Israel and America against Iran. I want to ask every person watching this a simple question, whether you support this war or oppose it, whether you think the Iranian government deserved what happened or not. What did those girls in Minab have to do with any of it? What did they deserve? This is the reality of modern warfare that press conferences and military briefings never show you. The supreme leader dies in his office, and the world debates geopolitics. 100 little girls die in their classroom, and the world moves on to the next headline. We cannot move on. For Pakistan, for the Muslim world, for every country that has watched powerful nations repeatedly bomb their way through the Middle East with promises of liberation, this moment demands honest reflection about who benefits from these wars, about who pays the price, about whether the pattern of the last 20 years has made the world safer or more dangerous. The answer, I think, is something most of us already know. The situation is still developing rapidly. The Strait of Hormuz situation is being monitored hour by hour. If you have family in the Gulf, stay in contact, follow official advisories, and stay with this channel, because as long as this crisis continues, we will keep bringing you the full picture, without filters, without propaganda, without choosing sides based on who is paying for the airtime. The truth matters, especially now.